This is welcome back to the fourth segment of Square Biz at Flower Square. As you know, I'm your host, Aaron Boyce, and you are
Ebony Strain.
Ebony Strain, and we have, we have an ongoing chess battle going on. Okay, we're still trying to determine who's the winner between Solomon, King Solomon, and Will,
and his opponent.
and Will Delaney, the owner of It's Your Move.
It's Your Move.
Right, and you got Will, Solomon, and Dan McKinney here, all tenants of family members, if you will, of Flower Square. So we're very happy to have all of you guys here. Ebony, you said that you had a question for Dell.
Well, it seems like he's a walking, talking wealth of information, and I wanted to just say openly, you know, you being able to go through your timelines like that was quite impressive. And in regards to the law, because that's the part we on, you know, what is your motivation? What was your motivation to go through what you went through to, you know, obtain your law degree?
Well, what started it off was my trial.
Okay.
In trial, I was charged with, I was identified as having shot the police officer coming out of Gerald Backridge, who ended up being a Superior Court judge. I was charged with shooting him coming out of a quick stop on 4th Avenue and Franklin Boulevard. And the truth of the matter is that the lady next door actually saw who shot the police officer, and she gave a description, said he was about 5'5" to 5'7", no facial hair, short haircut, large ears, and he was white. They showed her a number of white mug shots. She couldn't identify any of them. Who she actually saw was one of my co-defendants, but they never showed her a picture of him. They only showed her a picture of me in a photographic lineup. And so, except for the height, no facial hair, short haircut, large ears, I fit the description, except she said he was white. They showed her a photographic lineup with me with short hair, and then four dark-skinned brothers with naturals.
Of course, you were the one.
So I was picked out of that one. And then later, they came back and showed her another color photographic lineup with 4 different persons, and I was the only repeat. And so she picked me out again tentatively. So, anyway, when I went on trial for that particular charge, we were all charged with 2 counts of assault, conspiracy to commit murder, and murder. When I went on trial for that particular charge as an alibi, I told them that I was out at the international airport picking up Muhammad Speaks newspapers from the airport at around 5 minutes to 8. The police officer was shot right around 8 o'clock. I was 20 miles away. I presented documentation that I was at the airport because I had to sign an air bill for picking up the papers. The clerk that helped me load the papers off the plane into the vehicle came and testified that I was at the airport at the time that it occurred. I testified that I was at the airport. I was found guilty of that based on the fact that the district attorney alleged that I went out to the airport to establish my alibi and then drove back to 4th Avenue and Franklin Boulevard, which would have required me to drive at 100 miles an hour in order to get back to the scene of the crime. Like I said, I was convicted of that crime. And so I got to prison. I was convicted of that as well as conspiracy to commit murder, which carries the same sentence as murder. conspiracy to a charge carries the same amount of time as the charge. And so so once I got to prison, I was appealing my case. So the appeal was successful as far as the assault charge, but they left me with the conspiracy to commit murder, which carried more time, which carried the life sentence. So I kept thinking that, if I just get my case in front of the right court, someone would recognize I was innocent and I'd be released. I ended up in front of the United States Supreme Court on the docket for the term of 1977. What I didn't understand, well, I knew as a result of the research that I'd done in the law library in prison, was back in 1977, you could not argue in front of the United States Supreme Court that you were factually innocent. You had to couch your argument in one of the amendments. You have to either argue your First Amendment right of association was violated, or your Fourth Amendment right of an unlawful search, or a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, or Sixth Amendment right against for fair and speedy trial. I threw a couple of those in, but you couldn't argue you were innocent. That changed the following term in a case called Jackson versus Virginia. So anyway, what I found out is when you go in front of the United States Supreme Court, what is required for your case to be heard is 4 justices. It's arbitrary. They bring it up. They bring out all the cases that they have, and 4 justices have to vote to hear your case in order for you to get a hearing. If you don't get 4 votes, they just stamp your case denied and they send it back to you. So that's what happened to me. So a couple of things I realized in doing my own research was that I came across the 13th Amendment, and Ava DuVernay has done a documentary called 13th on it, and which reads, "Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime, shall exist within the United States or anywhere under their jurisdiction." Oh, I'm sorry. Except as punishment for crime, whereas the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or anywhere under their jurisdiction. So that made me understand that slavery hadn't really been abolished. It was just limited.
Couched in the semantics.
Yeah, it was couched in being convicted of a crime.
Yeah.
And so I felt that because I'd been a member of the Black Panther Party, Black Souls Poverty Program, president of the BSU, Nation of Islam, that I was being taught a lesson. That, because I was vocal and active. And so it seemed like especially out of Sacramento, because Sacramento has a history as a government town in the capital of California. It was back around the time I was born, the Ku Klux Klan was very active in Sacramento in 1950. And Sacramento was also the place in '67 where the Black Panther Party walked into the Capitol with guns, protesting a bill that was about to be passed called the Mumford Act, that was passed to disarm black people in California. And so California has Sacramento has a history of, along with, what do they call those, restrictive covenants, where certain places in Sacramento you couldn't live because the restrictive covenant wouldn't allow them to sell property to black people. So I felt they put me in my place by sending me to prison, even though they knew I didn't commit the crime. And so that's what, I wasn't interested in the law prior to going to prison. I was an electrician, I was a technology man. I wanted to eventually become an electrical engineer. But once I got to prison and then I was a young man in prison surrounded by a bunch of other young black men in prison, all with life sentences. a number of them were out of the Nation of Islam, just like I was in different parts of the state. So, so what I concluded in getting out of prison was, since I'm now a convicted felon, that it's much easier for them to get you again after they've gotten you the first time.
Right.
And so the other experience I experienced from going through a trial is that as a black man, you don't have credibility. You know, because like I said, I took the stand in my own behalf. I had documentation. I had other people. I had people testifying on my behalf. I was found guilty anyway. And so, and then the other problem I had was I had a panel attorney, which is this. When you are facing a capital offense, an offense that carries a life sentence, and there are multiple defendants, one of them gets the public defender, and then the others get panel attorneys, which is a panel of attorneys that they assign to each defendant. My panel attorney did not believe I was innocent until after the trial was over. So I determined that the next time, because I figured there'd be a next time, I said the next time I have an encounter with law enforcement, I'll be my own attorney and I'll understand more how to defend myself than I understood the first time through. And so that's what motivated me to be an attorney.
Okay.
With everything that's going on, you know, with the, you know, protests and the injustices, you know, as a lawyer, as a black lawyer, what is your thoughts on it, or what do you think we need to do as a people, or could we do, or just, you know, I'm thinking, like, what could you tell us? What type of encouragement could you give us, a man of the law that is acquainted with, you know, the grief and the injustices that we're going through? What would you tell us in regards to what's going on?
We as people have to realize the importance of us understanding our connection to each other. One of the things that I found out back then is that an organized community is a community that has power. And one of the things that people in power attempt to do is to keep a community disorganized, you see. And one of the issues that I see that we're faced with is that we're working toward the same goals as people, but we're approaching it individually or in groups that don't have a cohesive group working together. And so our protection lies in numbers. The more people we can bring together to work together, the more power we gain as a result of that. And so, but we have to understand that the government is against us working together.
Now, it's interesting because, as you know, the protests have been nationwide. Of course,
Absolutely.
we all talk about Seattle, we talk about Portland, we talk about New York, we talk about LA, Minnesota, Louisville, Sacramento. I mean, they're in so many large and small cities, you know?
Right.
And each of them has different legal, the law is different state by state.
That's true.
So
But they have similarities.
They do have similarities.
They have similarities, and all of them are under a federal umbrella. You see, our most powerful organization as a black group in America was called the United Negro Improvement Association, Marcus Garvey. The organization was larger than the NAACP and every other black organization we had. It was infiltrated by the government, and Marcus Garvey was charged with mail fraud
Yes, he was.
for advertising for a ship that he said he had, but he was actually wanting to buy. J. Edgar Hoover was the person assigned to get Marcus Garvey. And as a result of the prosecution of Marcus Garvey, they created the FBI and gave it to J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover also was instrumental in the COINTELPRO program
Yes, yes,
that
yes.
was responsible for any of a number of things.
And you mentioned Clintel and RICO, okay? Now
Okay.
I mentioned those two
Right.
because do you think that if we were more organized nationwide, do you think that the federal government could try to inflict COINTEL and RICO against us because now they're saying that it's an organized nationwide thing. So so how we want to talk about the protests, they want to talk about the riots, and so when they arrest, everything is connected to the riots.
Yeah.
So what's our recourse there? And unfortunately, we are coming to the end of our thing.
So let me say this about the riots. A lot of times the news has shown us that the rioters were really not connected to the protests.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's historically how things have gone. You know, the government sends agitators in and
Distract.
causes them. And I'll say this to close. One of the things that happened in my case was a man came down from San Francisco and talked an 18-year-old and a 19-year-old into going on a shooting spree. Now, he was out of the service. He was a black belt in martial arts, drill instructor
Yes.
for the United States, one of the service, I don't know if it's Army.
Right.
Anyway, he came down from San Francisco and talked these two into going on a shooting spree. When I was arrested, he was arrested too. They released him and sent me to prison for what he did. And so I was trying to figure all this out. I was walking the yard in Soledad, and it dawned on me that during the whole course of the trial, this guy's name was never mentioned. And he was the captain of the FOI, Fruit of Islam, which is the men's portion of the Nation of Islam. Plus, they brought an expert out from Boston to testify about the structure of the Nation of Islam, and any male in the Nation of Islam who was a Fruit FOI was under the direction of the captain. I was the secretary. My job was to open and close all the businesses and collect the money and pay the debts. The captain, like I said, they had us both downtown. They released him and sent me to prison for what he did. So I said that to say this. A lot of times the government will hire people to go to these sites and cause problems, start riots, vandalize, burn, and use that as an excuse, like Nixon did in '69, to reinstitute what they call law and order, which is what you hear Donald Trump talking about right now. So in order to really protect ourselves as a people, we have to realize our connection so that we can separate ourselves from those agents and agent provocateurs who are government hired in order to make us look like something we're not. And that's one of the things that it appears is happening all over again with the protests that are going on now.
So, Ebony, well, you hear this, right? Doesn't it seem like he should be like a six-part series, you know what I mean? You know, just keep coming back, so he could just share, you know, we may have to do a segment just for you, man.
Walking, talking, wealth of information.
I'm not joking, we may,
Well, you know-
because unfortunately, and I know you want to talk more, but I know, but we have to cut this, because, wow.
And let me say this.
Go ahead.
Let him
You know, one of the
Let
things
him
that I feel blessed to have been born and raised during the 60s, because I got to hear and see people like Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, Martin Luther King, Fannie Lou Hamer, Ella Baker, Stokely Carmichael.
Yeah.
And so that was a real blessing
Yeah.
to have lived during that period and to have been active in a lot of what was going on during that period of time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Ebony, I do hope that you come back. Okay, so that's, okay.
Sure, thank you, Aaron. Thank you for the invite.
We shall see, okay, we shall see. Hopefully King Solomon didn't scare her away. But thank you for listening to yet another episode of Square Biz at Flower Square, 2251 Flower Road. I am your host, Aaron Boyce, and you are
The co-host for the evening, Ebony Strain.
the co-host for the evening and other.
Are you wrapping me in?
Until then, we want to thank Will Delaney of It's Your Move, King Solomon of Pyramid Treasures, and the indomitable, okay, Dale McKinney, electrician and legal beagle. And we need him here because we need folks like him
Absolutely.
to protect us. So until next time, thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, okay, yeah.